We have a change in the syllabus. So on next Tuesday, Blake is going to take the class, and the readings are up, and I'll come to the end of today's lecture. And then the second part of the unit on the organization of knowledge, which involves the dictionary and so forth, we'll do next Thursday. Now, the only thing, if you've already done the readings, it's just good for you. The main consequence is that the homework, the assignment that's normally due on Sunday will be due on Tuesday, to be gone over on Thursday. So you have an extra 2 days to do the. If there's any objection, you can get it in on Sunday evening. So we're going to talk today about the organization of knowledge, another one of these developments that really is located in this period, this IT lull we've been talking about, between the invention of print and the telegraph, but basically the 16th, 17th, and 18th century, particularly the 17th and 18th centuries, when a lot of the institutions that we think of as belonging to the modern informational system, that some people call print culture, emerged. And again, I'll repeat this paragraph from Tim Blanning's book, The Culture of Power. Many, if not most, of the cultural phenomena of the modern world derived from the 18th century: the periodical, the newspaper, the novel, the journalist, the critic, the public library, the concert, the public museum. If we get to that today, I'll talk about the museum. Otherwise, we'll do it at the beginning of next Thursday. The dictionary and encyclopedia, which we'll be talking about, and public opinion and the public sphere, which we talked about last time. All connected in complicated ways, all emerging in this period, and science and propaganda and intellectual property, other things that we either have talked about or will talk about. So we'll be lingering for a few more sessions in this period before moving on to, if you want to think of the modern technological age that begins with the telegraph and the invention of the 19th century. What I want to do today, then, is to talk a bit about what knowledge is and how we think about it. It's one of these words that we use without really reflecting on too much, and it's worthwhile reflecting on it. The shifting frames between the Renaissance and the Enlightenment at the end of the 18th century, as people came to think of knowledge differently, as open rather than closed, as having a different social significance, a different role in education, and so forth. I'm going to say a bit about early reaction to information overload, a phrase that scholars have begun to use to describe some of the things that happened in the 17th century. Neither Paul nor I is entirely happy with the use of information in that context, as we prefer to use in the modern context, but it's clear what's meant. And then I'm going to say something about the material representations of knowledge, encyclopedias, libraries, museums, dictionaries. What the French have a nice word, trésor, which is like a storehouse, but they use it for both museums and material buildings and things like dictionaries and encyclopedias, so it covers all those different forms. Knowledge. If you look in the Standard Dictionary, the Oxford English Dictionary, you'll see a whole list of, the OED will have 15 definitions for a word like this, all illustrated with citations from the authors. And if you look, there are a bunch of different kinds of senses. There are individual senses, the kinds of knowledge we talk about individually. His knowledge of French is excellent. Acquaintance with a fact, I don't know how I know that we're late, perception. His knowledge that Lincoln was the 16th president, where it's just a relation between yourself and a fact or a proposition, and so forth. When we talk about knowledge, in the sense of the organization of knowledge and the like, we're not talking about these things. We're talking about another collective notion of knowledge: human knowledge, medical knowledge, our knowledge of the human body. We're not talking about I know what you know. We're talking about something that's collective, that's out there. The Oxford English Dictionary gives us a very odd, interestingly odd or incomplete definition: the sum of what is known. It's a definition that cries out for elaboration. A lot of variables, implicit variables in it. Some of what is known about what, by whom, in what context. That's not said. Now, if you think about just excuse me, I'm going to be coughing today, so just consider that excuse as going for all the following coughs. If you think, for instance, about the difference between medical knowledge and medical information, what's the difference? The state of medical information, the state of medical knowledge. How many of you here have medical information? Would say you have some medical information. Yeah, you know that starve fever and feet are cold, or whatever, or vice versa. Grandmothers disagree on this. Yeah, you have. Well, you could say that, but yeah, go ahead. And your name is, I'm going to keep it to Adam right here. Is known by everybody? I'm sorry, what's the other? Is document, yeah. You're Jesse, right?
And also knowledge has this connotation of like something that's not learned entirely.
There's a lot of medical information on those servers. There's a lot of medical knowledge on those servers. What's the difference? Yeah, and you're. Yeah.
I think medical knowledge also like pertains to records of different people, and whereas medical knowledge is like general knowledge of medicine and how like
Right. My medical knowledge might be on a hard drive in my doctor's office. My medical information might be on a hard drive in my doctor's office. My medical knowledge, if it's anywhere here, it's fairly slight. Anybody here have medical knowledge? Your name is? I'm sorry. Your name is? Yeah. And what kind of medical knowledge do you have? Okay. So you're an EMT. So you've had training in a no. That's exactly what you've had training in a specialized branch of medical practice, and you're part of that. You had training. You went to school. You know other people, and so on and so forth. And that's what gives you medical knowledge, and that's why nobody else raised their hands, because you might have medical information, but you don't have medical knowledge. Medical knowledge is something that lives in a set of institutions and textbooks and practices, and it's socially constituted. The state of medical knowledge is advancing, we say, in the sense that collectively we know more. Now, I say we know more. I don't know anymore, but I assume that there's somebody who's connected to me who knows more, and will, the next time I get a call, we'll give you another pill or something. Yeah, and you're Sam, right? Well, what about you? What do you think? Okay, I mean that's why. But the point is that you've taken a class, you've participated, you've learned some part of this body of information, body of content that's called biology, that's of which medicine is presumably a part, but it's out there, right? So knowledge, when we talk about it in this sense, is something that's out there, that's collective. Moreover, just to say knowledge is that which is known, the sum of which is known. I mean, there are a lot of things I know. I mean, I know that Nunberg's out of paper towels. Now you know it. I know it because I was told this morning on the way out of the house. Does that count as part of knowledge, human knowledge, modern knowledge? Something I know. It's part of the sum of what is known by. You take everything I know. You know what you know, and I know what I know. I don't think you call it knowledge, right? It's not. You talk about the state of human knowledge, but you expect to find it in Wikipedia. Numbers out of paper towels. I got to update the Wikipedia entry on paper towels because now numbers out. We would be even busier than we were. Kimberly Clark closed at the paper company, closed at $59, whatever, yesterday. Is that part of collective knowledge? Well, it's getting closer, but it's not something that when we talk about the state of knowledge that we expect somehow to be recorded for everyone to know. Paper towel consumption is 50% higher in America than in Europe. Now we're getting there, right? That's a kind of proposition that we expect to belong in some sense to this collective notion of knowledge. Arthur Scott introduced the first paper towel in 1931. Oh, now I expect to find that in Wikipedia, right? Or in the Encyclopedia Britannica. And that expectation isn't because of expectations about those encyclopedias, but rather because they represent knowledge in some sense, the sense of collectively what we want to have represented. That's obviously a moving target. The sense of what belongs to knowledge, what collectively we expect encyclopedias to represent, schools to teach, what we're concerned about, the state of, that obviously changes from one era to the next. And it changes dramatically between the early Renaissance and the Enlightenment, the beginning in a certain sense of the modern era. How do we talk about characterizations of knowledge? This very abstract, elusive notion. Well, sometimes people explicitly say this is knowledge, that is, and we can look at what people explicitly say. That was what was in. I didn't set up the D'Alembert passage. I'm sorry, at the end of it was difficult reading if you didn't have it set up for you. I will say more about it later in the session. But D'Alembert is trying to say this is knowledge, this is how it's organized, and so he's explicitly giving you that. Then too, it can be modeled, it can be implicit in the organization of certain institutions and certain forms. The curriculum, for example. How do we think of knowledge? Well, you got your linguistics department, you got your modern languages department, you got your cog-sci department. So all of these imply a certain division of the branches of knowledge. And if you took the organizational chart of, say, arts and sciences at Berkeley, there's arts and sciences and engineering, and so all of that implies a certain theory of knowledge. It's implicit. It's rough, it's practical, but it's implicit in that. They're material embodiments. You go to the library, and there's the shelves. Different shelves have different. The books are not randomly distributed. When I was young, just after I got out of college, I could all my books and I organized them by color. I would not try to do that. Now, it's actually good if you have like 200 books, because you remember what color books are. But at a certain point, it was not practical anymore. The body is organized by size, or they still? No, oversized. But the mode, and we'll talk about that, the mode of organization of library shelves, or of the rooms of a museum, of the form of a book, the chapters of a book, all of those imply a certain theory of the organization of knowledge. We can look at the textual embodiments, like the encyclopedia, the dictionary, some others we'll talk about. The encyclopedia has articles and sections, and maybe has a chart as it appears at the end of the passages I gave you from the D'Alembert introduction to the encyclopedia, which gives a sense of the organization of knowledge. And then there are things like metaphors and visualizations, the fact that we talk about fields of knowledge or trees. Discipline is a very interesting word. We talk about discipline. It actually is related to discipline in the sense of military discipline. Both have to do with disciple, but the idea this is what you have to know. At, let's say, 1500, the beginning of the Renaissance, what you have is an organization of knowledge that's really inherited from the Middle Ages with a little humanistic input. There's a basic division of knowledge into science and art, scientia and artes. There's a story about a dispute between the architect and the masons when the Milan Duomo, the Milan Cathedral, was being built. And the masons said, look, we don't need this geometry stuff. We know what we're doing. We're masons. We know how to put stone blocks together. And the engineer, the architect, who said, ars scientia nihil est, art without really means practice without theory is nothing. So this is basic distinction between practice and theory. There's higher versus lower forms. The highest being, of course, theology, from which we descend to philosophy and logic and grammar, and finally lower to the practical medicine and law, and then finally to the practical knowledge that one needs to work in the world. There's general and specified knowledge. In the Renaissance, there is the notion of what we think of as the Renaissance man. Now, I don't know if that's an anachronism to speak of it that way, but there's the idea of the polymath, or the pansophist. Palmieri, who's an Italian humanist, writes, a man is able to learn many things and make himself universal in many excellent arts. And there are many cases of professors in medieval universities who are teaching medicine and theology and several other subjects. Much rarer now. There are people still in the world who can do that, but we don't expect people to do it. And moreover, despite the fact that there's a big craze now for interdisciplinary studies and so on and so forth, it's a hard road to hoe. It's hard to push that because the walls of the disciplines are so high and firm. Book knowledge and knowledge of things. The 15th century curriculum, and remember the curriculum is one place where we'll see the structure of knowledge set out. The Encyclios Paideia, which is going to become the encyclopedia. It's actually from two Greek words, but they never use that way in Greek. They only use that way in Latin. By Latin scholars using Greek. The circle of learning, and it consisted of, and I'm not going to go through all this, the trivium, which was grammar, logic, and rhetoric. When you went to university, you had your trivium, you had your grammar, logic, and rhetoric. You had your arithmetic, your astronomy, your geometry, your music. Then you had ethics and metaphysics and natural philosophy. These were all very highly structured. And then after you finished your studies, you go on to study theology, medicine, or law in descending. I think maybe law was higher than medicine, but theology was first in descending order of importance. That was the curriculum. Now it's a little misleading to speak of as a curriculum because what you did was you went to these courses, you studied text. These classes were all built around text. You read a text in each of these classes. The university system was very different in a way. It had a lot going for it. The curriculum was pretty much the same because it was fixed throughout Europe, which meant that you could go on your Peregrinatio Academica, your Wanderjahre. You could start in Lisbon and then spend a year in Lisbon and then go to Paris for a year and then go to Bologna or another university. Because the curriculum was pretty much the same, you were fine. Nor did you have any problems shifting from one community to another with a language. Why? Latin. Everything was taught in Latin. So you could go back and forth. And the students, because they were preparing ostensibly for the priesthood, were not subject to the civil authorities. The universities were separate. You could do whatever you like. Not even short of murder. I think there are cases of students murdered. The civil courts couldn't touch you. So the students lived in wild abandon in this. I should have played Elias Egan too. We were talking about doing music. I was going to start with that. In wild abandon, the town and gown distinction that's still operant obviously today in Berkeley was quite intense and even on occasion violent in that period. The system of knowledge is closed. Closed in the sense that it's built around classical texts and classical sources of religious texts. Of course, as I say, organized around text rather than subjects. And there's a sense that this is the natural order of knowledge. The reason it's the same everywhere is because that's how the world is. In the sense in which, let's say, we might think today of the curriculum of physics. The different branches of physics are as they are because the world is as it is. What's the difference between physics and chemistry? Well, you got your electron shell for people who work in the sciences. Chemistry, physics goes out to the electron shell and then we're in chemistry. And because the electron shell is there, That's where the boundary of the disciplines falls. That's the picture of everything, of theology, of philosophy, of all of the subjects of the medieval and early Renaissance curriculum. It's natural. It forms itself in a tree. It reflects the divine order of things, and so it's closed. Within 200 years, something like the modern system of information has emerged. It responds to a number of different influences that are interacting in complicated ways. There are practical, pragmatic, material considerations. There are, and I'll come to each of these, there are philosophical, theological, even academic considerations, and there are symbolic and political considerations, all of which are interacting in complicated ways to alter the system. And of course, socially underneath this, you've got this growing, literate, urban, capitalist middle class, or something like a middle class, emerging that has very different needs and interests, and the expansion of literacy and education. All of this stuff is going on underneath it. How can we tell that the system of knowledge has changed? Well, we'll talk about some of the ways of doing that what's coming up. A crucial element of this is this break with the past, with classical tradition, with the idea that basically all our job is to understand what the ancients said because they were smarter than we were. It's kind of like the people now who say that we just have to understand the Constitution, right? What the founders wanted, and that we'll know what we should do. Francis Bacon, in The Advancement of Learning in 1605, Bacon, a figure we'll talk about a lot today, writes, a British polymath, English polymath, it would disgrace us now that the wide space of the material globe, the lands and seas have been broached and explored. What is he talking about? 1605? Where were we talking about? America, and the other places that have been discovered and are being settled. As if the limits of the intellectual globe should be set by the narrow discoveries of the ancients. We're opening the world. We're discovering all these new worlds. Literally, we should also discover these new intellectual worlds, these new worlds of knowledge. And the frontispiece of that book shows these two columns, which are the Pillars of Hercules. Anybody know that expression, the Pillars of Hercules? They refer to a geographical feature of Europe. Not far from there, but that's not it. Pillars of Hercules. Gibraltar, yeah, the Straits of Gibraltar, the Pillars of Hercules. Right. The entry to when you come in or out of the Mediterranean, you go through the Straits of Gibraltar, between Gibraltar and what's it in North Africa? Tangier. Is it Tangier? Yeah. I think Alec Guinness and Captain Parrott. It's a ship captain, a ferry captain has a wife in each side. And a ship going out through the Straits of Gibraltar, through the Pillars of Hercules, to discover new worlds. That's the metaphor that Bacon is concerned with. An example of this, I'll just go through very quickly, is the development of something like the modern system of botanical organization, the botanical world. In the 15th century, the enterprise of botany consists of these are largely people in Germany and Northern Europe going out and looking at the plants. And you've got your Pliny, Roman text, and Discordes, the Greek writer about plants. You've got them there. And you look at the plants and you say, okay, which one is this? And you just try to locate all the plants that are in Discordes. And there'll be some that you can't locate, and those you call the herbae nudi, the naked plants, the ones that don't have description in Discordes or in Pliny. Now, Discordes is a description written in the 3rd century of the plants of Greece. These are people wandering around Germany trying to find which of the plants. Now, you can see they're going to have some problems if they think the way we do about it. But what they do is to say, well, nature is very variable. Because Discordes has this plant, here's another plant, it's clearly not very much like it, but it must, because nature can vary in all kinds of different ways. The best way to tell, the taste. Plants that taste alike are of the same type. Why would that be, by the way, important to them? What's their practical interest in plants? I'm sorry? Medicine, right? And cooking and savory and flavors. But medicine is obviously a large consideration, and what will be at some point a genuine scientific interest. By the middle of the 16th century, Cordus, Valerius Cordus, a German, let's say, botanist, begins to go out there and say, there are just a lot of plants here that are not in Discordes. I mean, look at all these plants. Discordes names a few hundred plants, I think. There are thousands and thousands of different plants the more we go out there. There just must be lots that aren't in the classical sources. And moreover, we need some system of classification to be able to talk about these things. And people are starting to play with this. Most plants have actually 4 different names. They have a common name, like something wort or daisies or marguerites or whatever. They have the pharmacist's name, and they have traditional Latin and Greek names that are often derived from Pliny or Discordes. But these systems of nomenclature begin to emerge. And you begin to see, because you have printing, people can now publish drawings, pictures of plants. John Ray, who might be considered the progenitor of modern botany, English clergyman, also wrote, people also call him the father of ornithology, because he wrote with somebody else about birds. One of those figures that Paul was talking about, the discussion of science, the son of a blacksmith, lowborn, got a scholarship at Cambridge, was supported in the beginning of his career by actually one of his students who was a wealthy young aristocrat gentleman, finally got a living and became a curate in a church, but traveled around and wrote extensively on botany. And he's the first one to say, maybe taste and these superficial features aren't the crucial thing. The crucial thing to deciding what belongs to the same species is the features that perpetuate themselves in propagation from seed. That is to say, the features that seem to be inherited from one plant to the next. And if they can be reproduced and they continue to be reproduced in the line of descent, maybe those are the features that define the species. Thus, no matter what variations occur in the individuals or the species, if they spring from the seed of one and the same plant, they're accidental variations and not such as to distinguish the species. I reckon all dogs to be one species. They mingling together in generation, and the breed of such mixtures being prolific, even though dogs can have all kinds of forms and colors and so on and so forth. Inasmuch as they can breed together, that makes them a species.